Very special thanks to Taunton Jaguar for providing the vehicle in this review. If you are in the southwest of the UK and you're looking for either a new or an approved used Jaguar, or perhaps even a Land Rover as well, as they are a twin dealership, then click the link down below and check out their current stock. As most of you who have been around on the channel for some time will probably know, I am a huge fan of alternative technology in both cars and motorcycles. And not even just for environmental reasons. I believe that a lot of people kind of close themselves off to the idea of alternative powertrains and power sources, be it electric, hydrogen, even just hybrids in general, because regardless of the environmental emissions and all that kind of stuff, just for pure performance, many of them are very impressive cars. And of course, the current major trend in that alternative regard is full electric vehicles. This happens to be Jaguar's first ever full electric production car, and it is of course the I-Pace, in particular the EV400, which I drove from the Taunton dealership. Now I love electric cars anyway, so of course I jumped at the chance to drive this vehicle, and it's one of a couple of different Jag reviews from this same dealership, which I'm going to be dropping this week. Now in terms of performance, first of all, because of course that's the juicy part of an electric vehicle, and then we'll get to the practicality side in just a second, the performance is very strong on this car, and one of the things that I've already liked for some time, in fact, about the I-Pace before I even drove it, was that it's not necessarily trying to be an over-the-top electric car. It's fast enough, powerful enough, and certainly has more than enough torque to be impressively quick, but it's not necessarily trying to be the fastest thing out there. So for instance, it has a dual motor setup with all-wheel drive. It weighs 2,200 kilos, which is 2.2 UK tons, which is about what you'd expect these days due to the large heavy battery packs. This one, for instance, has a 90 kilowatt-hour lithium setup, and the performance is very good. For 400 horsepower, the 0 to 60 is 4.5 seconds. Now find me another crossover that weighs 2.2 tons and has 400 horsepower that can have that kind of 0 to 60 time. And even beyond that, it's above 60 miles an hour, where it just keeps going. And although, of course, most performance cars can keep going as well, it's a different kind of performance when it's an electric car. And one of my favourite things, in fact, about both this one and even something like a hybrid, such as the BMW i8, which I reviewed a long time ago on the channel, is it just feels relentless. In the case of a hybrid with the BMW, a full electric car, even more so here with the Jaguar, it just keeps relentlessly building because of having that single gear setup in effect, where you just, in effect, twist and go and unleash all of that power. Now it does have an electronic limiter to 124 miles an hour. Let's be honest, that's more than enough for most of the time, certainly in the UK, and you get up to 3-figure speeds so quickly that overtaking pretty much anything is never an issue. Now 4.5 seconds from 0 to 60 will blow the doors off of most sports cars, let alone other SUVs and crossovers. But of course it's not just about straight line performance. How can it handle the turns? Because something which is all new for Jaguar, that's fully electric, pretty heavy for a car of its size, it could easily be too wallowy through corners, it could feel too heavy. So what does it feel like? Well, actually, it feels remarkably good. In fact, going from this to, spoiler alert, the other Jaguar, which I drove later on, which is great in its own way, it felt like I was going back in time, because this car feels so futuristic in comparison, because it's just so instant. The acceleration, of course, is, but also the handling inputs, the throttle, the braking, everything is on a dime. It does exactly what you want it to do. In fact, the brakes are so good that they probably take a little bit more getting used to than anything else, because it slows you down real fast, almost as quickly as you can get up to speed, which is nice to know. It means it's this kind of modern day sleeper car, in a sense. Yes, it's environmentally conscious, but as I said before, you can quite easily outrun a lot of sports cars. In fact, even sports cars which on paper might sound more impressive, but in practice, you don't need to be a professional driver to get the best out of an electric car. You just floor it, and the car does all the rest. There's no fancy gear change times or launch control needed, it just gets the job done. Now in terms of range, which of course is one of the common issues that people do bring up when it comes to electric vehicles, bikes and cars, and I have reviewed some electric bikes on the channel from Energica and Zero, range anxiety is a big thing. And of course with a motorcycle you're even more restricted because of the size of the bike. You can't fit that big of a battery pack in there, whereas with a car you can make it the entire floor pan if you wanted to. In the case of this car, it can do about 290 miles according to the WLTP, about 250 according to the EPA. Initially it was actually less, then Jaguar updated the car and got more range out of it. This one, for instance, the amount of charge that it had, as you could see at the start of the video, had about 220 miles ready to go, and that was for city traffic as well. So again, it has some range anxiety, as all electric cars currently do. Some are definitely better than others, but one of the redeeming features about even current EV technology is that charging times are getting so much quicker. With this car, for example, you've got two primary options. One is for if you're out and about, and one is for when you're at home. At home, when it doesn't matter as much and you can leave the car on charge overnight, Jaguar actually offers a built-in wall kit to charge the vehicle, and it charges up at a rate of about 20 miles per hour of battery. So it's perfect for an overnight charge. However, with a 50 kilowatt DC fast charger, which you can find in a number of locations throughout the UK and elsewhere as well, you can actually get 160 plus miles of range into that battery in 1 hour. That is a lot better than things used to be. Now, of course, an hour is a lot longer than just driving into a petrol station, but still, for an electric car, that is leaps and bounds ahead of what we used to be capable of, not just for Jag, but for all electric brands. So although to some degree range anxiety is still a thing, I would say that electric cars, in a similar way to my thoughts on those electric motorcycles, are fantastic choices of, in particular, commuter car. A long-distance car, perhaps not so much, but let's be honest, how many people are actually going to be doing 300, 400, 500 miles every day? Now, some people do, but chances are that's probably not in your personal car. The amount of people who would need to do that is a very small amount. So for those people, maybe it's not the car for you. If you're commuting though, 10, 20, 30, maybe 50 or even 100 miles a day, well, this car is more than capable of doing that. A lot of locations and businesses have their own charging stations now anyway, so again, it's not really an issue once you're in work. So these hurdles to overcome for the public image of electric cars to become even more widespread, they're kind of breaking down. It's getting better all the time, and I'm glad to see that because, as I said, I love these alternative technologies. What then in terms of stuff like ergonomics, the interior, the space, the tech even, the day-to-day stuff that you see all the time when you're sitting in the car? Well, I love the interior design. In fact, it's probably my favourite looking interior of any electric car currently on the market, and I will go ahead and say that I already believed that this would be the case, and after driving the car it confirmed it. This would be my electric car of choice. So you could kind of end the video there. If I were to buy a brand new electric car right now, it would be an I-Pace. Because I love the look, I love the interior, I love the performance. It doesn't need to be some 900 horsepower machine, of course that's cool, and the car based on how it can handle 400 horsepower could definitely cope with more, and I believe we probably will get some more at some point, either from the SVO program or perhaps from maybe a brand like Lister taking it and tuning it up as they have with other Jags. But either way, it's, let's be honest, fast enough for daily driving. But to get back on track with the space and the interior stuff that I was referring to, the car does have 5 seats. It's a relatively compact car by SUV or crossover standards, kind of like a larger hot hatch in terms of its shape. The design is by Ian Callum, and of course in conjunction with a wind tunnel. It has a drag coefficient of 0.29, which is very good for a production car. And although styling and appearance is very much so a personal and subjective thing, I subjectively think it's a great looking car. I love the I-Pace, tons of people were looking at it, it does catch attention. But it has this difficult to attain factor which I really like, and again the BMW i8 in the sports car category had this as well, wherein people are drawn to look at the car, but then there are certain brands or certain cars which people almost turn their nose up at in the opposite way. Not that it's a bad car, but that sometimes they're maybe trying a little bit too hard, and I'm sure you can think of some brands like that. For a car like this though, or the BMW, people look at it and they don't turn their nose up, they think, whoa, what's that? That looks cool, it looks futuristic. But in the case of the Jag, even more so than something like an i8, it's futuristic enough, but still very much so looks like a current Jaguar. It fits in the range very well. And for those who maybe haven't looked at other reviews for the I-Pace, which is possible, I guess most prospective buyers probably already have, but if you haven't, and this is your first exposure to the car, well, it's not just me who likes the vehicle. In fact, back when it first came out around 2018, the I-Pace won over 60 awards internationally, including in 2019, the first Jaguar ever to win the European Car of the Year award, amongst a lot of others as well. So a lot of people like this car a whole lot, myself included, and this is one of those occasions where I actually don't mind being part of the large crowd and agreeing with them. Now, to me, the only downside to certain electric vehicles currently, bikes and cars, in fact, are exactly the same in this regard, is the price. And a lot of that current cost is because, directly in fact, of the batteries. The cost of development, the cost of production, is a lot. So this car, for instance, about 40% of its price is due to the batteries directly. So it is prohibitive for some people. This car, for instance, starts at about £65,000. You can spec it up a little bit higher, for instance, around the 70-75 range. But again, for an electric car, that's actually not crazy. In fact, that's less than a lot of other, and I'm not going to name specific names, but I'm sure you can think of some, other electric brands when they first brought out their models. And again, this is Jaguar's first ever foray into this. So I think in terms of a first attempt, it's, well, a home run, in my opinion. I think they did a great job with the car. It's not obscenely large, but it's big enough to be spacious for somebody like me who's taller and wider, maybe somebody who has a smaller family, because again, it's a 5-seater, not a 7. In terms of trunk space, as you could see in the video, it's good. You can, as I said, fold the rear seats down as well to get even more luggage space, and it has a little bit of space in the front trunk as well. So overall, my thoughts on the car are, I think it's great. The cost is the only real issue. Range is going away in terms of being an issue quicker and quicker, because with range being an issue, it's more so about the charge times. And as charge times improve, well, then the range won't matter quite as much. Then, of course, we can focus on range and start improving that as well. And that's when conventional cars need to really start worrying. Overall, though, if you are in a position to look into an I-Pace, if you are on the market for a brand new, for instance, electric car, maybe to finance one even, that's certainly a viable option for many people. Long-term purchases are really where electric vehicles come into their own. For instance, if you do want a daily driver that you can commute in, that costs pennies on the mile compared to, well, petrols or diesels, then of course you should consider it. And if you get the chance to go to, for instance, a Jaguar dealership and test drive one, well, why wouldn't you want to? Of course, take a look at that, perhaps even the dealership that I tested this one at. But that's it overall for my thoughts on the I-Pace. Are you a current owner, or have you driven one in the past? Are you a fan of it? Tell me down below. And of course, stick around on the channel for another Jaguar review this week. And as a little teaser, it is the F-Pace, Jaguar's other full-size SUV. So of course, stick around for that one, and check out some of the previous Jaguar reviews that I've done from some of their older stocks, such as XKRs and F-Types, which you can find in the playlist on screen. But until next time, I'll see you then, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.